So I think one of the bigger ones was whether journal articles, book chapters, etc., were actually in an accessible format online. By that I mean, is it accessible? Is it readable by kind of screen reading software, or is it readable by the VoiceOver on iPhone, MacBook, etc.? I think the overwhelming majority were, but you'd always kind of find those ones you needed last minute that just weren't accessible. I think the first couple of years maybe that was a bit of a panic. Oh no, this isn't accessible. What do I do? I've got this seminar tomorrow. I think what you learn there is in two parts. One, even if you don't need it for a couple of weeks, go and check, is it accessible? No, right, send this off to somebody and get it accessible. But also B, if it's not, it's usually not a big deal. Come in if you need it for that day, speak to your lecturer, speak to your seminar tutor, speak to the disability and say, listen, I've not done it, this is why. Argue it's not good enough, you need to have checked beforehand, but if that's been uploaded last minute, equally I think you need to have understanding with the kind of lecturers, with the academic staff here, that there's not always a way of knowing whether that will or will not be accessible because they don't have that software. So yeah, I think that's quite a big barrier in and of itself. I think the real positives of learning here is just how open, friendly and approachable the kind of teaching staff are. Just specifically in my department when I was studying here, I don't think there was any member of the teaching staff that wouldn't seem to go over and above what they were expected to do. If it meant making things accessible, if it meant kind of improving that experience for the students, which something I didn't expect coming here. I thought it was very much, well, they've done their job, they don't need to do this extra work, they might not have the time or the ability, you're putting so much extra pressure on them. So I spent so much time kind of worried about that, because what right have I got to put more workload onto them? But in actual fact, I find out they're more than willing to help, and maybe they just weren't aware beforehand that this was a problem, and once aware of it, it almost becomes an automatic process where they can maybe just hit a couple of buttons, change the way they save something, or change the instructions slightly, and it can be so helpful. So that was a real positive, because it helped in that experience, but also boosted your self-esteem a little bit as a student to say, yeah, I can do this, and I can bring my problems to people. Lecture halls, I had no problem with them in terms of accessing them. They were fine and all. I think my problem would be, the way they're designed. There was no real similarity. So some would have like the I don't know what you'd call it, like a lectern or so in front of the first row of seats. Some wouldn't. So if you're coming to a lecture late, you're not really paying attention. You're tempted to bump into these things, or almost kind of cause a bit of disruption from that. But I think when you kind of get used to which rooms are laid out how, that's fine. Equally, I think the fact that most lecture rooms are set out pretty much identically is very, very helpful in terms of learning your bearings. Seminar rooms tended to all be laid out very similar. Sometimes you'd have classes in before that need group work, they'd have to move the tables, but I think that's expected. And again, just speaking to a lecturer, speaking to a tutor, from my experience, I'm more than happy to help you out in that situation. If you're not sure where your seat is or something. I think my main difficulty there was always, if you wanted to go and be with people you knew, hours, then if it's really, really busy, that's quite difficult to negotiate. But again, there's no real way around that, so I think it's just if lecturers, if tutors are willing to maybe say to a student, if they're aware, a student comes up to them, sorry, do you know where so and so is? If they're willing to then say, yeah, they are sitting here, that would be fantastic. That's amazing. Otherwise, I think, there's nothing they can really do from an academic point of view. The only thing I would say is avoid, I suppose, an expectation that somebody with a disability or somebody with a visual impairment would need to sit at the front of a class, because sometimes that can be quite, you can make that person feel quite self-conscious about it, because you feel like you're the only one that's made to sit somewhere, and if there was, because they're behind you, they're almost watching you. If that's their choice, that's totally different. But I think, sometimes there's an expectation put on, academic staff. You should encourage students to sit here or there. But I think having an honest conversation, having an honest conversation with that student about their preferences, about what works for them, and don't work off a kind of broad idea of what students need or what they would like, to speak to them about it. I think GCSE Learn, I didn't have any major problems with it. I think, in the first year or first 2 years, there's maybe little niggles, little kind of difficulties with navigating it. But I think that is purely down to an accessible software point of view. Depending on what you use, it lays it out slightly different. But there's no major dramas, no major problems that can be overcome with that. I think from a student point of view, it is a case of just going in. If you don't need anything, just go in anyway and just practice, just use, click on things, explore things. Again, I think where it can get difficult, if a particular article is buried inside a folder within another folder, within a module, within another folder again, it can be quite difficult. But if there's some kind of instructions that are left as to where these articles are, again, whether that's in an email that's sent out to students, whether that's that one student contacting the lecturer, I think that kind of helps with that. But there's no real problems with it. And having been to other universities, I think GCSE Learn is much better than some university systems. So, yeah. So I never really had any problems with the assessments. They all seemed really straightforward, really, I don't want to say easy to do. I mean, easy in terms of there was no accessible problems, there was no difficulties from a disability standpoint. Whether there was or not from an academic, intellectual point of view, I suppose that's irrelevant. But I think the only assignment I've had problems with was, doing the online wikis, it was called. So, kind of a website type idea, creating different pages for different parts of the assignment. That was very difficult for me because it did not interact with the accessible software. I personally hated group work. Not from a point of view of necessarily doing the work. I think it has its benefits, it has its importance. If you follow that profession and get a career there, you will have to work with other academics, other people. So I think it's important from that point of view. But I think what was difficult was maybe explaining to other students abilities and limitations of what you could do. The majority of students would be fine with it, totally understanding, and that's fine. but across a 4-year degree, you're almost guaranteed to come across one who always kind of gave the impression that they thought you were just being lazy. They didn't really understand or appreciate the difficulties for you in doing it. So I don't know again if that's a conversation that needs to be had between the student and the tutor or the lecturer, and that's relevant for that. But yeah, I think that was always a kind of a point of concern, a bit of stress for me doing group work. So in terms of teaching documents, I fairly quickly, I think in the first year, kind of got to the point of speaking to all the lecturers, all the tutors, and just saying, listen, is it possible to receive everything in a PDF format? Because that was the most accessible for me when using my phone, the voiceover function. That reads very, very well through the PDFs, and it kind of reads it quite naturally in quite a fluid kind of way. It does not work very well for the laptop's PDF, but again, it's very easy to then convert that into Word for a laptop. That's my preference. Other students will be different. But yeah, I find academic staff are more than happy to work to your preferences on that. Videos and other media, I was always offered, do you want this audio described? Do you want the lecturer to describe it in class? Do you want to make an appointment afterwards to have somebody describe it? My preference was always no, I'm comfortable as it is. If I have any questions afterwards, have the trust that I will come to you. Or I'll go to Disability and query it. But otherwise, I think don't make assumptions. Don't work stereotypes. All visually impaired or blind people need audio description, or all hearing impaired students may need translation, sign language, or something. It's not necessarily the case. I think again, just check with that student and make it clear to the student that they can come to you with whatever the difficulties are or with their preferences.